Hey, so welcome to another podcast episode of the Soulful Side of Life with me, Portee. I hope that you're well and having a good week. And on the podcast today is Josie Santi. And it was a delight to speak with Josie about all things health and wellness. And we went to spaces in the conversation that I didn't plan to go to, but that's just how it unraveled. Josie is the senior wellness editor and podcast host for the Everygirl podcast. And Josie is also a certified wellness and holistic coach. And she is based in LA, and she's got this passion for health and wellness. And you can just tell that that's her passion because she just opens up and she bubbles up about it, and she's got this light and glow on her face. So it shows she's in the space that is her calling. Anyways, in this podcast episode, we talk about health and wellness for young little girls and body image. And we talk about trends and things that we see on social media and knowing when one should jump on a trend bandwagon or just focus on the most important parts of health, like being joyful and just making sure that you've got the right tests, like maybe as opposed to focusing on the trends, getting a simple blood test to see if you've got deficiencies in certain areas of your body. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode where we dive into issues that I think are important to you, issues that I think that the everyday human being asks themselves about health and wellness. And Josie offers some thoughts and advice on how we should be thinking about health and wellness without the pressures of trends. So enjoy this podcast episode with Josie Santi. I hope that you find it a blessing to your life. Josie, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Allie. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Me too. I mean, you can't get enough of ever talking about health and wellness because we only get one body, and we have to do our best to take care of it when we're young. I think because how you take care of the body when you're young is how it's gonna treat you when it's aging. So,
Absolutely.
I just want to dive on in because you're just knowledgeable in this area. And I'm curious, before we get into health and wellness, what's your story in this space? How did you come to have a passion about health and wellness?
Mm. It's really funny because I think as someone who also interviews a lot of people in health and wellness, we really expect that they grew up their whole lives being interested in this. And I, for most of my life, was almost like resistant to health and wellness, especially in high school and college. While all the other girls were worried about their weight and eating salads, I was like, I'm going to stick it to the man. I'm going to eat pizza and pasta, not worry about food. And so I really had no interest in health and wellness. And it wasn't until about college, like when I was about 21 and I was taking classes on religious studies. It ended up becoming one of my majors. I was just so passionate about it. And I took a course on Ayurveda, which is like an ancient form of medicine. It's still practiced today, but it basically was the first time that I had heard, oh, health is not just about weight loss. It's not just macros and calories and proteins and fats and burning calories in order to lose weight. It was the first time I really heard of health as the tool to live your spiritual life, to be the best version of you, to feel your best so that you can achieve your goals. And that was a really big aha moment for me of health is a currency. And it sounds a lot more obvious now. Now we have a lot more of the tools to talk about health as being a lot bigger than just about weight loss and the way that you look. But at the time, in our society, it really wasn't discussed like that. So hearing that wellness is a key part of your spiritual journey, it's a key part of living your best life, feeling happy was such a huge aha moment for me. And it made me feel like, oh, if I heal my symptoms. At the time I had a lot of health anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety in general. I had really bad periods. I had a lot of gut issues. And so it made me realize if I heal these things, I can feel better in my life. I can feel happier. I can achieve what I want in life. And so ever since then, I've really been on a mission to help people understand that their bodies, that health is a currency to get any goal they want, whether it's in their relationships, with their career. Health is a currency that we need to get there, not an end goal or an end destination. And so that was kind of like how I got into it, is really helping people achieve their life, helping myself achieve my best life through the lens of healing our bodies and optimizing our health so we have the energy and vivaciousness and vibrancy to show up in our lives the way that we want.
For sure. I think probably the most effective health and wellness people are those who didn't start off in it and were like you in college. I don't care about health and wellness. I'm not like the other girls. And
Right.
like my father, he's a mortician, and that has made him an extremely healthy person because he's had all kinds of cases where he's embalmed all kinds of bodies. And I think, when you keep seeing somebody with psoriasis of the liver, or, you see somebody's lungs that are just completely blacked out from years of smoking, or someone who's extremely overweight, obese, and you're seeing all of that fat when you're going in and preparing the body, it just makes you very healthy. And would you say that that is probably the case for people who really didn't care, like yourself, about health and wellness,
A
going through your own
100%.
health struggle? Yeah,
Yes,
makes
and first of all, what a fascinating career your dad has, like, how cool. But I can totally obviously relate for different reasons, but for sure having your own health issues, I think it's always a blessing in disguise is what I've learned, because no matter what that health issue is, it forces you to have a connection to your body that you wouldn't otherwise have, that we would be easy to ignore our bodies. So, I feel really, I guess, fortunate, which is a weird word to say, looking at all of the health struggles I have, because it what allowed me to have the relationship with my body and the connection to my body, because I was forced to listen to it. So I definitely think, any kind of health issue or even the awareness of the, I guess, importance of our health. It's an easy thing to take for granted until it's not there anymore. And I certainly do not want to live my life taking my health for granted until there's reason not to. I want to appreciate and take care of my body before I get to that point. So, I think my health anxiety really played into that too, because growing up, I had severe anxiety. I would have panic attacks over, there was one time I went to the ER because I thought I was having a heart attack. I was like 19
Mhm.
years old, I think. I had
Mm.
really crippling health anxiety, and I felt like my health was not in control whatsoever. And I was always, I mean, this is getting really dark and deep, but I was always really, really, really afraid of death. But I think that that is what really connected me to my body in this really profound way that I wouldn't otherwise have had. So, yeah, it was like all these little stepping stones. I think when you have that either anxiety and fear or connection, if you're a mortician and you have that like awareness of death and how fragile and beautiful life is, or if you have health issues, it certainly connects you to your body in a way that I always feel like is a blessing in disguise.
For sure. There's so many trends out there. There's so many people giving advice. When I was a teenager, it was the Atkins diet, all these different sorts of, supplements you should take. Take stevia, don't take stevia, all these things. For you, what does it mean to be healthy? What is your definition in a world where it's oversaturated in so many trends and supplements?
Mm.
What does it
I
mean to
love
be
that question, and I love the way you framed it, because it's true that our culture's definition of health is very limited and very aesthetic and very, this is the right thing to do, this is the right routine. And I really don't believe that that's true wellness. I think that true wellness is actually about freedom. It's about feeling so unburdened by symptoms that we can live our best life. I think that wellness is really defined by joy, what feels good to us. It's all about the way that we feel. I think pleasure is a cornerstone of wellness. Which is obviously so different than we think of. You have to say no to the mac and cheese and chocolate cake and have the you know, bland chicken and rice and veggies, and that's healthy. I wholeheartedly disagree. I think that a cornerstone of health is our joy and pleasure, and nourishing our bodies is what helps us feel the most amount of joy as possible. So I really define true wellness as the connection between joy, pleasure, and kind of bio individuality, which is like every body is so different. So that connection to your body and what it means to be well for you, we're so obsessed with these trends or these routines, whether it's, doing 30 minutes of meditation. Of course, for some people might be amazing, but for other people, they might get the same effect by listening to fun music and dancing around their kitchen in the morning for 30 minutes instead of a meditation. So it's really about acknowledging what your body and what your mind need over what an influencer says or what a trend is going on. So that's how I define it as freedom, joy, and then that deep connection to your body.
Yeah, and I think when I was growing up, I have a curvy shape, and, it can be brutal being a young girl in school and you're trying to figure out how to love yourself. And when most of the other girls have slender, thin bodies, it really just put a lot of anxiety on me as
Mm.
a elementary school, middle school student, and some of high school. That by the time I got to 8th grade, I just stopped eating. I didn't have anorexia, but I was only eating like one meal a day. I slimmed down significantly, but that's not a sustainable way to live, because when you eventually start eating, you're going to gain all of that back.
Right.
Um, for the young kids out there who may struggle with being extremely underweight or or have, they're not thin, what advice would you give? Because I love your definition of the freedom just to have that joy to live life. And how do you have that joy as a young person when you may not like how your body is, or you may have a health issue like, I don't know, a disease that's going an autoimmune disease or something that's going to stick with you, but you're trying to, I don't know, live a normal life according to what the world standard is, and it can give you
Yes.
anxiety. What advice do you have to young people?
That's an amazing question because I certainly relate. I for years felt like I should be losing weight. What's wrong with my body? I want to restrict calories. I for sure went through all of those years, especially to your point as a younger person, when all we have is all of this food noise and this pressure to look a certain way and the opinion of our peers or everything. I mean, even as an adult, it is not easy to escape. I talk about this on my podcast every single day. Pretty much, I have a thought pop in of you should lose weight or you should look different or this isn't good enough. And striking the balance of enjoying your life and optimizing your health. I think for so long we're really believed to be two separate things. You either could optimize your health or you could live your life and enjoy it. And I really want, especially young people, to know that they don't have to be two separate things. They can be one and the same. So, my advice would be to think about what joy really means to you because sometimes joy really is, it's going to be the holidays or it's Thanksgiving and you can enjoy the mac and cheese or the mashed potatoes and know that your body has got you. You can have maybe like a superfood smoothie that morning to fit in all these nutrients that your body needs to optimize your digestion. You can get the Brussels sprouts and fill your plate with veggies, and then you can enjoy the pumpkin pie without worrying about the calories or whatever because your body's got you. You are fitting in nutrients in so many other ways that enjoying your meals over the holidays or having, a slice of cake with your mom or going to get ice cream here and there, that's not going to affect you because you are filling your body with enough nutrients to support it. So that's kind of like one definition or one piece of advice is to trust your body, to give it as much nutrients as you can otherwise, knowing that if you want to indulge and enjoy your life, that should be a good part of it. Joy is a nutrient too. Your body needs joy. There is 1,000 different biological reasons that your body needs joy and pleasure from your food. So know that it's okay to have pleasurable food. But then also, I would say, in shifting the definition of what we see as being healthy for our bodies and what joy and pleasure actually look like, I have really come to understand that, yes, sometimes the most pleasurable and joyful option often is eating food that tastes amazing, is having the dessert with dinner, whatever it is. But a lot of times, that actually isn't the pleasurable option. Having chocolate cake is going to really make me feel bad. It's going to, having too many glasses of wine, I'm going to wake up and feel really crappy the next day. So actually the joyful, pleasurable option would be to maybe have one glass or to have a few bites of chocolate cake and not go to the point that I no longer am enjoying it. And so I think it's hard to get rid of the food noise because the food noise is really what's causing us to overeat or to binge or to eat more than we actually want. But when we really reconnect with what actually would feel joyful to us, it's a struggle for me still of it sounds really joyful to watch another show in my Netflix binge instead of getting up and getting ready for bed. But I know what that's going to mean. If I watch another show, I'm going to, be rushing getting ready for bed. I'm going to have a really bad night's sleep. I'm probably going to wake up the next day really groggy. What would feel so much more joyful and pleasurable to me, even if in the moment it feels a little uncomfortable to turn off the TV and get up, but I know it's gonna be so much more pleasurable to have this, like, slow, relaxing nighttime routine and get a really good night's sleep where I wake up feeling so good. That is so much more pleasurable. So, to answer your question on advice, I would really start reconnecting with what actually feels good to you. Like, what does joy and pleasure actually feel like? And start making decisions on more long-term joy instead of the short-term pleasure that might feel a lot easier to do, but will affect your joy negatively in the long run, and start building your life and your choices on that instead of this idea of like, I either have to restrict and choose the unhappy, unjoyful option, or I have to, lean into my guilty pleasures and all that. Like, I think that we just have to redefine what joy and pleasure really look like to us, and it
Mm,
becomes the easier choice when we realize that we are making these decisions out of joy and pleasure instead of restricting ourselves from them.
yeah. How do you think that parents can be supportive of their children's health and wellness, no matter their child's body shape or any conditions the children may have?
Oh my gosh, such an important question because I really, not only do I believe, but there's a lot of research to show how much the parent's voice really becomes, our voice in our head. And especially when it comes to, I mean, both for little young boys and girls, but especially for women that they're being taught so many things about what their body is supposed to look like. The biggest thing I think for parents is to think about what you do and the example that you set instead of what you say. So, a huge example is, maybe for fun, we're going to go for a walk and we're going to, enjoy a walk after dinner, or we're going to go like, I don't know. I even see young mothers bringing their kids along to yoga and being like, let's meditate for 30 minutes. Do you want to sit with me? I'm meditating. Do you want to sit on the floor next to me? And we take deep breaths. And they teach their kids really early on, and they're leading by example. Their kids grow up watching. Their parents are active. Their parents are choosing healthy food options. Their parents are choosing to make time for themselves. To me, that is the biggest thing you could ever do for your kids is show them the example of what it means to prioritize a healthy life and to prioritize yourself. Especially as mothers, I think there's such this idea of like, you have to be selfless, right? You cannot take time for yourself. You have to give up your exercise routine. Your kids have to come first. And yes, of course, to a huge extent, that's very true. But I also think that when we think as mothers we have to be selfless, that is breeding more generations of children that are thinking we can't prioritize ourselves. And I certainly want to break that cycle. I want my future children that I'll hopefully have someday to learn this is what it looks like to prioritize me. And I think that that's an empowering skill to show your children what it looks like to prioritize your body. And you have to do that leading by example. So that's kind of the first main thing is being an example for what it looks like to prioritize a healthy lifestyle. And then the other thing I would say is, especially if you are working on that food noise and that feeling like I want to lose weight or I don't like my body, as I sadly would say most of us really are, do not hide that from your children at all costs. Do not let them even hear you talking about if you're going to go on a diet or that you have to lose weight, because even if you're talking about yourself and not them, the way that you speak to yourself becomes the voice inside their heads. So whatever it takes to hide that, to not let them know that you are thinking of food in the way that you probably are, as most of our generation is, and instead really teaching them, instead of you have to eat your broccoli before you have dessert, it's okay, your broccoli is helping you run really fast. So the more broccoli you get to eat, the more you got to run really fast and play really hard tomorrow because it's doing amazing things for our body. Teaching them that as early on as possible. It's not you're supposed to eat your vegetables, you're supposed to exercise, and instead showing them how amazing it can be and why, I think is the most powerful thing we could teach our children. And it's really how we heal a generation and raise them a lot differently than we were raised, which was very, health is this restrictive thing. And food, exercise is all about what we're supposed to do. We really have the power to change that, and it starts with the way that we talk to our kids.
For sure. And looking at like the men in my family, they have been brutal with their daughters and how and a growing girl is sometimes gonna have a little stomach or, just my observation of the young girls in my family who are not anywhere close to obese, but they're not stick thin, and the father's poking their fingers at the stomachs, or, your stomach is getting too fat, your thighs are starting to run together or rub together. And I think that's quite damaging to do to a child. And I totally agree with you that it starts with the parents showing good lifestyle habits. And this doesn't start, you're trying to do this with your child when they're 10, you can't start then with healthy lifestyle habits. It's pushing the child in the stroller when you're going out doing your run. When you're doing your exercises on the floor, put the baby next to you and let them see you do that, and feeding them healthy things as they are moving from baby food to table food. So I think it's all in the parent can't start healthy lifestyle habits at 8, 9, or 10. It really
So
starts
true.
when they're a baby on the floor watching you do your thing. So
Yes, absolutely. They learn and they mirror what they see you doing. And to your point also about especially like fathers being hypercritical of young girls and their bodies, I think that's unfortunately the case for so many women. We not only get it from home, but we also then get it from culture, from our friends, from I remember other boys in the class, in like 5th grade when you're so little, like snickering about, oh, this girl looks really fat or this girl is
mhm.
super hot, and you learn your value so much based on your body. And my God, it's time we break out of that. Like we have been dealing with that as women for literally centuries. It's
Yeah,
time that we break out of being so hyper obsessed with our bodies, and it really does start with what you can control in your home for your girls, for your kids.
totally. Totally. So when you are hearing of new trends, or supplements that one should be taking, where do you start? Like, do you think, oh, let me go to the store or let me go on Amazon and order this? Or like, how do you implement new things into your life with health and wellness?
Yes. So I like to say that I really am a guinea pig. I do like to try everything. It's quite literally my job, so I do try most things. But what I have learned is that the trends are typically a distraction. So even when I'm covering a trend on, the everygirl.com or on the Everygirl podcast, I always make sure to say, this if this sounds interesting to you, if doing this walking routine is helpful, if trying the supplement sounds cool, awesome. Be your own guinea pig. Know that how it affects me or how it affects someone else might not be the same way it affects you. So try it for yourself, be your own guinea pig, but also a supplement is not going to make any difference. A walking routine, a workout, whatever it is not going to make any difference if you are not focused on the foundational, eating whole foods, getting a good amount of sleep, lowering your stress, moving consistently in whatever small way that looks like. So sometimes I do struggle with this, I guess my relationship with wellness trends, because obviously a lot of them can be like so cool, like all these new biohacks coming out. Like that's so cool that we get to try that and try this new supplement or try this new technology. And that's really exciting. And there certainly are many trends that I've incorporated into my routine that I absolutely love, like mouth taping or red light therapy, or these things that I really swear by and do often. But I think a lot of times for many people, trends become ways that we distract from our own actual well-being, what would actually make us healthy, which are the very unsexy, boring things, the very basic stuff. So I kind of, when I talk about trends, I always have to do a caveat of like, yes, there's so many really exciting ones. I certainly test anything that comes up for myself so that I can report on it and share my honest thoughts. But if it were just kind of like me trying to build my wellness routine just for myself, I would really honestly tune out all of that noise and only focus on, walking every single day, eating whole foods, testing my, getting blood tests to see what I'm actually deficient in and supplementing based on that, not based on what the coolest new supplement is. And based on my goals, specifically talking with my doctor about what supplementation works best for me, instead of again going based on spending all this money for the trendiest new supplement that is really not going to do anything. Supplements, unless you're deficient in a vitamin, then a supplement can really be beneficial. But most supplements out there really makes like such little difference that I would not be spending my money there. And then really focusing on my relationships and stress relief and sleep, like these things that are so much more crucial for our well-being, for our hormones, for weight management than we give them credit for. So that's kind of like my long answer is trends can be really cool. And I think like listen to your intuition. Like if don't do anything based off of what an influencer says or just because a headline is like, this is the coolest thing that's going to change your life. Don't listen to that. That's all marketing. Listen to your own intuition. If something like mouth taping sounds really interesting and you want to get more better sleep, so that might be the key to help you, totally experiment with it. But otherwise, don't worry so much. Just focus on the basics and don't get overwhelmed by wellness and all the marketing out there.
For sure. You said something interesting. Last year I interviewed Catherine Garbarino, and I was asking her, what supplements do you advise taking? And she's like, when I first started out with health and wellness, I would just go to the store and buy everything. But she's like, now I just advise people to get the blood test to figure out what you're deficient in. Would you agree with that as opposed to going to GNC or a reputable vitamin company and just buying a whole bunch of vitamins and supplements?
100%. Yes, because first of all, I don't want you spending all this money that is just a waste. We really want to base any supplement routine off of what your body is actually asking for. So, testing is absolutely the first place to start. I mean, even just like the basic, making sure your iron's good, your vitamin D, magnesium, these things that we are typically more deficient in, even just starting there is so great, but you can also get a lot more thorough blood panels with a company like Function Health or something where they can really go deep and see, are there more minerals that you might be depleted in that the basic test from your doctor might not pick up. So 100% starting there is crucial. And another example of this is not just even in what we may be deficient in a vitamin, but also, for example, like if you're testing and your hormones are off balance, there are supplements that can help support your progesterone. So then you would want to be supplementing with something that is supporting your progesterone, or if it's your estrogen, it's like there's basically like there's supplements for any health goals that you might have, any issues that you have going on, even if you don't have symptoms yet. It's understanding what is actually going on in your body. Test, don't guess is kind of the golden rule in wellness. Um, Mainly because I don't want people wasting their money, because I've done that for many years of my life. I was the same way. I would go down the wellness aisle of any grocery store and be like, "Oh, this is promising weight loss. This is
Mhm.
promising that I'm going to have more energy. Great. I'm going to take all these things." Not understanding how it actually works is your body is not a machine. It's like a living, breathing organism with all of these very individual systems. And so supporting your body based on what your body needs is a way that you see difference, not from supplementing because it says on the label that it's going to help with that. So 100% test, don't guess to start, and then work with your doctor on, whatever your health goals are, if it's to balance hormones, if it's to heal your gut, if it's to increase your energy. There are supplements that can help, but you just have to go based off of what your body chemistry is actually saying it needs, and you get there by blood panels and other tests like that.
For somebody listening who they don't know where to start, you mentioned Function Health. Is this a lab in most states that you can go to, or do they send you something and you get the blood sample? How does it work?
Yes, really good question. I recommend Function Health at this point to all of my clients, to all my listeners, because they are, first of all, their whole goal, their mission is to democratize health, because obviously healthcare can get very pricey. I forget right now, I think it's a few $100s, but I don't quote me on that because I kind of forget. But basically, they work with a lot of labs, including Quest Diagnostics, which is one of the most, common labs. So they really, I think Quest is in every state, most states. And it's very easy to find, a lab near you. So they basically will order it in for you. And then you go to your local Quest. Sometimes it's even like available at your doctor's office that they just work with the labs, and then get your labs, get your blood drawn. And they are just a lot more thorough. So they will test everything from thyroid to hormones to cortisol. They test your biomarkers for inflammation, for what else is there? Metal detox, how much heavy metals are in your system. Like they really test so thoroughly for such a good price compared to what kind of similar options are going for. So I really do like to start there, because that helps us, especially if you have migraines, for example. There's lots of reasons you could be having migraines. You could have a hormone problem. You could be having a stress problem. It could be related to your gut. Like it could be a neurological, like there's so many different causes.
Mhm.
So doing these testing, when they go really thorough and they test all these different biomarkers, really helps to identify what exactly is the cause of your symptoms. And then, of course, then you have the healing protocol for there. And something else I also love about this company, Function Health, no affiliation with them, no money made off of this or anything, by the way, just my genuine recommendation, is they also have a doctor that's reviewing all of this and then giving you suggestions based on that. So I recommend, you take the findings to your doctor so that you have more individualized approach, but they also have someone there saying, "Okay, this is what this lab means. You might need more of this food, you might need a supplement with this." So you do get those immediate recommendations, and also just like explanation, because if we were to get back labs, we would be like, what does any of this mean? Is this
Right.
actually a big deal? So you kind of get that explanation and then some basic recommendations, and then you can take what you found to your doctor for further changes in your life.
Yeah, it's very important, I think. I think we can't just rely on physicals, but taking that extra step to get labs
Yes,
like this done, thorough ones, because as you said, we could have deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, too much heavy metals, and then when we start doing the right thing that we need, then, oh, the headaches go, or the Graves' disease goes in remission, or yeah.
exactly. Especially as women, there's so many statistics, and I don't even think we need the statistics. I think any woman listening remembers a time where they didn't feel heard by their doctor, or felt dismissed, or didn't feel paid attention to. So Exactly, like, especially for women, I think it's so important to get answers. I was told for so many years, "Sorry, sometimes periods are just really bad. That sucks, like, that's a bummer." I was told for years by my doctors, "That's just the way your body is," and it took testing to realize, "Whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on here that I can heal at the root," instead of trying. I tried, like, my doctor would put me on high doses of prescription painkillers, like, I tried
Mhm.
so many things, and it took years not feeling heard, and then testing was the thing that helped me actually identify the root cause and then heal, which is why I really recommend that to everybody.
Why do you think medical doctors know that going and getting thorough testing could be a benefit? I have my theories of why they're not recommending this, but I'm curious to hear your answer. They could have been recommending that to you about, what you were going through.
Yeah, and I really wish they did every day because I would have got the answers a lot sooner. It's such a sticky thing because I really don't blame doctors. I think it's actually our system. It's everything from healthcare and insurance to medical schools. Like, they're not really teaching doctors so much. I mean, I think it's changing. We're talking about this more. Functional medicine is becoming more and more mainstream. And functional medicine is really, it's addressing the root cause instead of more of like sick care and prescription based care. So I think that it's changing. But certainly, doctors are not taught in school. This is how you heal gut malfunctioning with food. They're not taught that. They're taught how to work different medications in for different symptoms and different issues and different illnesses. And of course that is so needed. That is there's a huge need, there's a huge time and place. Like, if I am having a heart attack, I for sure want my doctor to know exactly how to do surgery the best and how and what medication to prescribe to help my heart, whatever it is. Like, there is a time and place for that. But when it comes to a lot of our like chronic illness or chronic symptoms, doctors are just not taught that. And so I think that's one major factor of it. The other is just the way that our system is set up. Most doctors are seeing these really intense symptoms. They're getting 15 minutes with patients. They are kind of overworked, overscheduled, back to back to back patients, and just trying to see as many as they can because that's just how our system is set up. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons. The main one being just like our system in itself is not set up to heal people. It's intended to sustain people from their illnesses and from sickness. And it's a very prescription first healthcare, which again, there's a time and a place for prescriptions. I'm not anti medication, of course, but I always say, like, you can do both. I was on an SSRI and an anxiety medication for years, and I was working to identify what is the root cause of my anxiety. I worked with a therapist for years. I also worked on a physical level, increasing my gut health, knowing that 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut. I knew that that had something to do with my anxiety. So again, it can be both. And I hope more and more doctors are learning that, and they're learning the both instead of it just being the prescription first. We can really, I think, shift our healthcare and companies like Function Health. There's a lot of other companies out there. I also go to like Parsley Health, Tia Clinic. These are all systems that are working to change how our healthcare works so that we can get those answers earlier on, and we can have doctors that can sit for hours on end and explain every little thing and work to heal your chronic symptoms instead of just manage it until it gets really bad. So I think there's a lot of promise, but that would be my understanding of why it's really the system.
Gotcha. A couple of last questions. You mentioned earlier the importance of meditating. And because I think a lot of things that are happening in the body may just be because we need to relax. Last year, I had done so much international travel, and I'd been going nonstop for 2 months. And by the time I got to Paris Fashion Week, I was having these terrible chest pains that I had gone to a reception, and they had served, drinks on platters as, walking around. I took one, and I thought maybe somebody roofied me because I
Wow.
went extremely cold, I was sweating, and I was about to pass out, and a friend was like, "You don't look good, your skin is ice cold." but I don't think I had been roofied. I think it's just that my body was pushing back against the nonstop travel, lack of sleep, all the flying. And when I got back to the US, the chest pains didn't stop and I went to the ER.
Yeah.
They ran all of the, blood tests, everything. They're like, "You're totally fine." And then they wanted to offer me fentanyl, and I thought, "Oh, no, that's extreme." I don't know if they were testing me to see if I had an addiction and if that's why I was there, I don't know. But they were running the blood test so they would see I didn't have that in my system, but anyways, I just and I went to an eye doctor visit after that, and she's like, I think you've just got to relax and take care of your body because I was having blurry vision on top of that. And she's like, sometimes we get ourselves so worked up, but just learn to just relax and then take each thing slowly. You don't have to rush through things. And I think that goes back to your point about meditating, that sometimes it's really not anything physical happening inside. It's just our minds might be pacing and it's causing physical things to be going on, but it doesn't mean we've got a disease or something serious. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on the importance of really just taking it slow and
Oh my god, I could write a book on this. So yes, absolutely. First of all, how are you feeling now? Are you better? Are your symptoms better?
Yeah, much better, and I take that eye doctor's advice very seriously because I'm a person who's just always on the go and like when I get off an airplane, I zoom to customs, I'm zooming, and I found when I got to baggage claim, my vision was going blurry. I was getting
Mm.
migraine symptoms, and she's like, "We rush through life, and for what? So just walk calmly off the plane. Don't rush to get to so, and I found that I don't have these migraine symptoms when I
Wow.
put myself first and relax.
Mm. That is so powerful and such a powerful example of how seriously we have to take stress. I think it's so easy for us to really, I guess, be very flippant with stress. We all are like, oh, yeah, we're supposed to stress less. We're supposed to meditate. But like, who's not experiencing a lot of stress in today's world? And I think that's such a great example of the serious effects of stress. I mean, we have all the science in the world and so much research to prove how stress is actually the number one factor, way above and beyond what diet and exercise does. Stress is the thing that will impact us the most. And yet a lot of times we're even getting stressed out by our wellness routines. We're like, oh my God, I have to do the 10 steps and I have to get to bed early. Oh gosh, it's 10 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. I have to wake up at 6. We can get stressed out even by our own wellness routines, the things that are supposed to be making us well, not realizing or acknowledging that stress is the number one factor. I even like to explain it from a very biological perspective. As back in the cavemen days, everyone's familiar with like our fight or flight response. That's what's happening when you feel stress. Is your body is thinking, okay, there is a danger present. There's a tiger. I have to run away or I have to fight it. Every time you're in traffic, when you're running off the plane to get to customs, every time you feel that stress, your body is thinking there is a threat present. So, what the
Mm,
body does is shuts down all these important mechanisms in your body. It shuts down digestion, your hormones, because the body is thinking, I need all of my energy to go into fighting this tiger or running away from it. So our bodies quite literally, biologically, cannot thrive in the best case scenario, much less sustain basic functioning while we are in stress. The body is meant to shut down when we are experiencing stress. So what I have done, obviously, do all the things, journaling, meditating. I love the advice to just like slow down, just like be slower in your life. I think that's so powerful. But I also like to look at it from that biological place where I realize, if I have a really busy work day or I have a deadline or I'm running late on something and I feel that stress feeling, my shoulders are kind of
mhm,
getting a little tense. You can feel your heart speed up. You can feel like your blood shortening or your breath shortening. I notice that's happening and I literally tell my body to relax. And
mm,
I almost think of it like this is just how it clicks in my brain. I think of it like I'm telling my caveman self that has no idea that what we're stressed about is we're running late for a plane or we have a deadline or whatever. I tell that caveman part of my brain, we're safe. There is no threat present. It's okay. We can relax. Our lives are not in danger. And what that does is it lowers or it raises your stress threshold so that these things, whether it's, you're in traffic and you're running late, or you are working on a project that is due tomorrow, whatever it is, you're in a fight with your significant other. These things do not have to cause you stress, because stress is the body's way of understanding that your life is in danger. So you are able to train your body to understand that our life is not in danger. So just from a very like primal biological level, even just that framing to yourself, I'm safe, I'm relaxed, I'm going to relax my shoulders, I'm going to unclench my jaw, I'm safe. My life is not in danger. If
Mhm.
you start doing that every time you realize that stress happening, you will realize over time it makes such a huge difference. It raises your stress threshold so that these very common things don't have to stress you out anymore. It doesn't have to signal to your body that there is a threat present. So that's kind of like the biggest thing that I would say to lower stress, besides, of course, all the other great practices we know and love, meditation, is to train your body to feel safe even in busy schedules and traffic and traveling and all of these things. Training your body to realize my life is not in danger, I'm okay. That will transform your relationship with stress and how much that stress is impacting your body.
For sure. For sure. That's some really great advice. Last question. So a new year is almost upon us.
Crazy.
It is. The years are just passing so fast. Um, Everyone likes to get into their health kick at the start of the new year. Start a gym membership, start this trend, what have you, and then most people don't stick with it. So what advice are you giving your listeners, your friends, on how they should be approaching and thinking about health and wellness for next year?
Mm. Yes, we see most resolutions failing by February. So I think it's like 75% of resolutions fail by February. So obviously, the system does not work. What I would say, first and foremost, when you're starting any new goal, when you're, wanting to get on a health journey, is to first of all assess your why. We really do not do that enough. We really focus on the outcome. We focus on, I want to run a marathon, I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to eat cleaner. We focus on that outcome without focusing on the why. We will lose motivation so much quicker than if we have that motivation in mind. So, whatever you want to accomplish, whatever your New Year's resolutions are, what is your why? Do you want to for example, run a marathon? Why do you want to do that? What would be good about that? Is it to make you feel really confident in your life? Is it to prove to your younger self that you could do it? Is it because you want to live this long, healthy life and be there for your grandkids when they grow up? And so running a marathon will help you do that. Like, what is your why? Why do you want to lose weight? What is it? It's okay if the answer is because you want to feel confident in your body. That's okay. But that's a much more empowering, motivating goal to feel more confident in your body than to lose 10 pounds. That feels so much more tangible to us. And so knowing that why and visualizing that outcome will be so much more motivating. I will recommend to my clients, because there's a lot of research on how our future selves, even if it's our future selves in 2 months, our brain associates that future self as a stranger to us. So that's why we, for example, know that eating junky food isn't going to help us get to our health goals, but we do it anyway, because that future self that will feel the benefits of us not eating the junk food now, it feels like a stranger. So we do the thing for us now. So the more that you can visualize what that actually feels like, what you're working toward, how does it actually feel once you've run a marathon? What is that like? The more you can visualize that, the more connected to that future self you will be, which means the more you will be making decisions for them and as them. So visualization is so powerful with resolutions. Um, Building in milestones and small goals. So, again, with the common resolutions we see, lose 10 pounds by summer. That's a really hard thing to measure, right? That is really kind of unmotivating and really distant, far off. We're not connected to that goal. So instead, is it, again, like I hate even having any kind of measured goal like weight, but if you do want to lose weight, because not to shame people who do, if you want to lose weight by summer, break down what does that mean per month? And not just about like how many pounds does that mean per month, but what does that look like? Like, what does that actually mean that how many vegetables are you eating every week? How many steps are you doing every day? Breaking it down into goals by week or day, even like what that week and day look like, will be so much more effective to getting you towards that 10 pounds weight loss by summer goal than just saying, I'm going to lose 10 pounds by summer and like hope for the best. So
Mhm.
break any goal that you have down into very small, specific steps, even by the day, by the hour sometimes, like especially people who are working on their water goals. It's not just like, I want to drink more water. That means nothing. That's not going to help you get there. How much water should you drink by noon? How much water should you drink by 5 p.m.? Then like break it down even by the hour if that helps with your goal. The smaller, more tangible goals will help you get there so much more drastically, and you will accomplish so much more than you thought setting that initial long-term goal. So, having the why goal, understanding your motivation behind it, visualization, and then breaking down into smaller goals. If you do these things, I promise you, you will achieve any goal that you set your mind to.
Yeah, and it'll probably just turn into a lifestyle because that's
Exactly.
to manage health is
Exactly.
yeah, make it a lifestyle.
Make it a lifestyle. Yeah, don't make it a kind of like end result. It's will then become a part of your life. It will just be something you do like brushing your teeth.
Right, right. Wow. Well, Josie, thank you so much for your time. You're so knowledgeable.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you. It was so fun. My favorite topic, anything health and wellness. So it was so fun. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode and that you have found a soulful connection to the conversation. God bless you, and until the next episode, go bless somebody else.